Hello and welcome to SPAG Dialogue's big event, this Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Thank you everyone who's taken out the time today to participate in this very important discussion. I'd like to thank our knowledge partners for this event, Roche, and our other partners, Leap Club, Pinkathon, and Varian, for supporting us in this cause. This is not just another event for us at SPAG Dialogue. This one is special. Breast cancer continues to be one of the most stigmatized diseases across the world. And till date, women live in uncertainty with regards to symptoms, clinical protocols, treatment, but more so about the impact it can have on them psychologically and physically. We have come together today to do our bit in paving the road to a more informed world, one where there is no stigma, no uncertainty, and there is no fear. I'd like everyone to know that this event is also being streamed live on Facebook. We've shared the link with you in your chat box. And you can circulate that with people that you think might be interested in knowing more about their journey through breast cancer. So on that note, let me welcome our keynote speaker for today, Reema Sanghvi. She's the co-founder of Pinkathon, which is India's largest community for women's health that has not only taken up the cause of breast cancer awareness, but done wonders with it. So I don't think there's enough that I can say about you, Reema, that will do you justice. So thank you so much for being part of this event today. Over to you.
Thank you, Iknoor. Thank you so much. Well, hello, everybody. And well, more than half a century ago, Goffman defined stigma as an attribute that is deeply discrediting. Stigma reduces the person from a whole and usual person to a tainted and a discounted one. Well, Pinkathon is a run that was started to address the stigma around the women matters, especially breast cancer. When we started the Pinkathon in 2012 with Mumbai as one city, it was so difficult for us to get women to run in that first year. But we still managed to assemble 2,500 women who came and ran and celebrated that particular Sunday. They celebrated themselves on that particular day. They celebrated their stories, their life. And when we saw that on that Sunday, there was no looking back. We knew this was the need of the hour. We knew that such events were required to address what was happening, to address the stigma. What we see today is that we are 8 cities strong and we are 100,000 women running year on year, yet again, celebrating themselves in all, and we see every shape, every size just coming out on that particular Sunday and celebrating themselves and sharing their stories. And I think that was the need of the hour. Pinkathon was no more a run. It was a revolution owned by the women of India. It actually changed my life because the first Sunday, which was in 2012, when I saw those stories coming out, I knew that something had to be done, something bigger had to be done. And this message, this spreading of awareness, this messaging did not need to stop. And we continued, and it was the motivation that we received from the women that we continued to grow the movement called Pinkathon. Many remarkable women have been featured or shared their stories and inspired the change for better, demonstrating great strength in their fight against breast cancer. And perceptions related to one's own body may impact the woman's sense of identity, her self-esteem, her acceptance, her sexuality, and also perceive the stigma. Wide range of psychological issues, diagnosis of breast cancer, first of all, including accepting the diagnosis, adjusting to disorders, anxiety, which may progress to even clinical depression. So not only was Pinkathon preaching that physical fitness was the need of the hour, but even mental fitness. And the community of Pinkathon suddenly became a safe space, a space which would help these amazing cancer warriors to share their stories, to tell them that they are not alone. And this was a place that they belonged to. I would like to share a little story, which is the most inspiring story, which is why Pinkathon took place, and that was the story of Devika Bhojwani. And she actually, when she had breast cancer, she was unable to even speak about it to her own family. And today, Pinkathon was born because of her story, because we realized that even people like Devika Bhojwani, who are from extremely well-educated backgrounds, were unable to talk to their families about breast cancer. And the stigma attached to a breast cancer is humongous. And Pinkathon was born to address this stigma, this space that needed to be created. And that's exactly what Pinkathon did today. I would urge all women today, it is so important that the advice that I give today is taken seriously, because Pinkathon preaches this day in and day out. Keep your weight in check, be physically fit, eat lots of fruits and vegetables, do not smoke, breastfeed as much as possible, don't forget screening. I think we all believe that it is never going to happen to us. And that is the problem. I think we must get screened at the age of 40 and above. You must get screened and also understand your family history. And if you have the history of breast cancer in your family, then please get screened even 10 years before. And just, it's better to get checked, right? And this is, so our only motto is that together we will be stronger. Speak up, talk about it, be vigilant, be optimistic.
Thank you so much, Reema, for that beautiful speech. We can absolutely hear you. Is there more that you'd like to add?
No, my video is going away. Give me a second.
We can hear you though, very clearly.
Okay, something's happening. I'm so sorry.
All right, I think we faced a slight technical snag there, which I think is something that we've come to terms with through the period that we've been living in for the last 1 year. But I'd like to take this opportunity to just thank Reema. Thank you so much for sharing your views. And I think Pinkathon has done great work in terms of bringing a community together. And that's really what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about the journey that a breast cancer patient goes through, right from beginning to end, and how we can create a world for them that they feel is a safe one. So thank you so much, Reema. And on that note, I think we'll get started with our panel discussion for the day. Before I introduce the panel, I'd once again like to thank our partners for this event, Roche, and our other partners, Leap.Club, Pinkathon, and Varian. I think Reema has just about managed to get her camera on. Reema, is there something you'd like to add just before we move on to the panel discussion? I think technical glitches are a part of our journey through the last 1 year, so no worries about that.
I'm so sorry about this, but I think, okay, we're pressed for time here, but I think I would just like to end with a line that you never know how strong you are until being strong is the only option you have. So guys, I think, so to all the breast cancer survivors and warriors out there, this is my message to you, that we are there for you as a community. Pinkathon is there for you as a community, and please be a part of this. Get yourself out there, be fit, stay active, and remember that you always have a friend in Pinkathon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Reema. That was absolutely beautiful. And I think it's the perfect tone that you have set for this discussion. Thank you so much for being a part of this event.
I don't know what just happened.
Not at all. I think, like I said, we are absolutely used to technical glitches at this point. So no worries. Thank you so much for joining us today. And you've really set the tone for this discussion. So without further ado, I'm going to jump right into the panel discussion for today and introduce our lovely panelists who've decided to come and support us for this event, not forgetting our partners, Roche, Leap.Club, Pinkathon, and Varian, who've supported us in this event today. But bringing on our panelist, Dr. Meenu Walia is a renowned cancer specialist with almost 30 years of experience in treating cancer patients She is the first DNB medical oncologist of India. Currently, she spearheads the Department of Medical Oncology and Hematology at Max Super Speciality Hospital in Patparganj, Vaishali, and Noida. Also joining us is Dr. Govind Babu. He is a medical oncologist at St. John's Medical College and HCG Hospital. Also, he is currently the president of Indian Society for Medical and Pediatric Oncology. Roshni Datta is our third panelist. She's a senior director, marketing Asia Pacific, Japan, and India at Varian. She has an extensive experience in her industry and will be lending some key insights to the discussion today. Manju Katyal is a breast cancer survivor who's joining us, and I doubt anything that I say would do justice to her. We can't wait to hear from her today about her experience through it all. Ma'am, अगर आप अपना कैमरा ऑन कर सकती है, please do that and join this discussion. Thank you so much to all our lovely panelists for joining us. I'd like to mention कि ये event थोड़ा सा bilingual होगा ताकि हम अपने सारे panelists को include कर सकें. So हम conversation English and Hindi दोनों में करेंगे. Thank you so much everybody, and I think let's get started with this discussion. We have a lot of topics that we want to address today, but I want to get started with the basic topic, and I want to bring Dr. Meenu Walia in first. I want to understand from you, Dr. Walia, what is the starting point? And I think a lot of people who have joined us today in this discussion want to know that. What is the starting point? How does one navigate this journey from symptoms to diagnosis? Where does it all really begin?
So, Iknoor, I must say you have asked a very, very valid and an impertinent question. The starting point is, it is all about the starting point. It is all about recognizing the starting point. And it is at the starting point where most of us fail. So the starting point is about the first symptom, about when it happens in a lady, the first symptom, and in many cases, even in metros, even in places like Delhi, like I am practicing with Max Hospital in the heart of the city, and where you have really elite and the educated population. So very recently only I had seen a lady, a very educated lady, principal of a school, who came to me with a breast lump, which has been there for almost 8 to 9 months, almost a year. And she had not had the courage, she did not go to any doctor, she did not tell the family members, she did not got herself evaluated. So the starting point is not only the first symptom, the starting point is awareness about the disease, how the disease can present, and the starting point is also awareness about the prevention of the disease and the screening about the disease. Because in Western world, we talk so much about that, we talk about catching breast cancer early, even in stage 0, and we talk about screening. Even before you feel a lump in the breast, we talk about mammography for every lady after the age of 40. But in our country, we are still struggling. What to say of screening? We are still struggling to tell them that these are the symptoms, at least. I mean, one needs to be aware of what prevents breast cancer. One needs to be aware of how we can pick it up early, what we need to do even before the symptoms develop. But at least when the symptoms develop, then please, please, please don't take it as a taboo. Talk to people, talk to somebody in the family, go and show to your family doctor at least.
Absolutely. And I think that is where most people get stuck in a way. There are a lot of also suggestions that come in from families, right, which don't let you go ahead and eventually get that screening done. In fact, I want to go back and forth from between technicalities and real life stories and just kind of getting a whole holistic perspective. और मैं मंजू कटियाल जी को चाहूंगी कि वो अपना कैमरा ऑन कर ले. मंजू जी, डॉक्टर वालिया ने एक बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट पॉइंट मेंशन किया कि जो पेशेंट्स होते हैं वो जाके अपने आप को स्क्रीन नहीं करवाते, टेस्ट नहीं करवाते, और मेनली अर्ली डिटेक्शन इसलिए नहीं होता है. अगर आप थोड़ा सा अपने सफर के बारे में हमें अगर बता सकती हैं, आपको कब पता चला कि आपको ब्रेस्ट कैंसर था?
मेरे को थोड़ा सा हल्का सा बुखार होने लग गया था, मुझे मालूम नहीं था. 10-15 दिन मेरे को बुखार हुआ है. उसके बाद 15 दिन के बाद मेरे को फील हुआ कि मेरे को लंप है इसमें, ब्रेस्ट में, लेफ्ट साइड में. तो मैंने इमीडिएटली डॉक्टर को दिखाया, अपनी जो फैमिली डॉक्टर थी उसको दिखाया, तो उन्होंने बोला कि आप अल्ट्रासाउंड करवाओ, और अल्ट्रासाउंड में उसको थोड़ा-सा शक हुआ तो उसने बोला मैमोग्राफी करवाओ। मैमोग्राफी में उसने बोला कि आप इधर-उधर मत जाइए, आप सीधा डॉक्टर गीता के पास जाइए। तो हम मेरे घर वालों ने बिल्कुल टाइम वेस्ट नहीं किया, इमीडिएट इसको लिया और डॉक्टर गीता के यहाँ पर मैं गई, मैक्स हॉस्पिटल में, और वहाँ जाके उन्होंने बोला कि आप आगे इसका ये, उनको तो डाउट था ही कि है, कैंसर ही है। उस टाइम में जैसे सबको फील होता है, एकदम से पैरों के नीचे से ज़मीन निकल जाती है, जो सब पेशेंट्स को रिएक्ट करता है, वो मेरे को भी हुआ। पर उस टाइम में मैंने देखा है कि आप अपने ब्रेन को बैलेंस कर लो ना, तो ये आगे की जर्नी जो है ना वो बहुत ईज़ी हो जाती है। मैक्स हॉस्पिटल सके से लेके घर आने तक मेरे बेटे ने पूरा मेरा ब्रेन वॉश कर दिया। उसने बोला कि अगर ये प्रॉब्लम आ ही गई है तो इस प्रॉब्लम का हमने ये सोचना है कि हमने इसका सॉल्यूशन कैसे लेना है। और कहता है आप अपने ना ब्रेन की जो कंप्यूटर है ना उसकी फ्लॉपीज बंद कर दो, इधर उधर की बेकार की बातें सोचने का। आप ये सोचो कि मैंने इस जर्नी को कैसे, अपने आप को हैंडल कैसे करना है, और पॉजिटिव हो जाओ। और वो कहते हैं कि पूरा ट्रीटमेंट तो हमने करवाना ही करवाना है, और जो डॉक्टर बोलेगा वो करना ही करना है। बहुत से लोग जो मैंने देखा है कि बीच में छोड़ देते हैं, पर ये गलत बात है। ट्रीटमेंट जो है वो जैसे डॉक्टर कहे वो पूरा उसको फॉलो करना चाहिए और करना चाहिए, उसको पूरा लेना चाहिए
एक चीज जो
सीरियसली।
आपने बोली मंजू जी, मेरे साथ बिल्कुल बैठ गई है, एंड आई वांट टू टेक दैट अप विद डॉक्टर गोविंद बाबू, दैट पैरों के नीचे से जमीन हिल जाना, यू नो, दिस इज समथिंग दैट वी हियर फ्रॉम so many cancer patients, and breast cancer especially, because there's so much of stigma attached to it, right? Why is there so much fear? You know, why is it that there is that kind of fear? Because when we talk of it from a purely technical, medical perspective, how do you really look at it? Is there a need for that much fear to be there when people come to know that they have breast cancer?
Yeah,
असल में क्या है कि हमने अपनी, सॉरी मैंने
No,
बोल
no, ये हाँ जी
मैंने
बोलिए मंजू जी, उसके बाद हम डॉक्टर गोविंद बाबू के
मैंने
पास
तो
आएंगे।
जिंदगी में, इंसान कभी ये सोचता नहीं है कि मेरे साथ ये हो सकता है, इसलिए पैरों के नीचे से जमीन
Of
खिसक
course,
जाती है।
of course.
और जब हो जाता है तो उसको कैसे आपने लेना, ये सबसे बड़ी जो है ये मैं कहती हूँ कि ये बहुत बड़ी बात होती है कि आपने उसको लेना कैसे उसको। अगर
नहीं, और
आप
मैं
स्ट्रांगली,
आपके पास आऊंगी 2 मिनट में मंजू जी, क्योंकि मैं आपसे डिटेल में जानना चाहती हूँ कि आपकी जर्नी कैसी रही, लेकिन मैं डॉक्टर गोविंद बाबू के पास जाना चाहूंगी 1 मिनट के लिए। डॉक्टर गोविंद, इफ यू कैन जस्ट एक्सप्लेन टू अस व्हाई this fear exists today.
yeah, thanks, Ignore. Actually, I think this is a good initiative, and I hope a lot of lay public get benefited by this, and I hope they're all listening. Cancer, we always used to call it as big C. And when they say cancer, it was considered a death sentence. This was the days when I started oncology. In fact, the stigma was not just for cancer. It was not just for patients. People ask me, why are you going into oncology? Even the doctors would get stigmatized. So that was the situation. But today we know that patients are living much longer. Many cancers are getting cured, including breast cancer. The main point is to detect breast cancer early, because then if you detect them early, their lifespan could be as normal as a person who did not have cancer. So this is very, very important to remember. And as Dr. Meenu said, it is not education, it is not how rich you are, that you get the detection done early and take treatment. I can give you an example of a staff nurse who had breast cancer. She knew it was, but she waited for 1 year because her son was going abroad, and she didn't want his problems, her problems to come in the way of his future. So I think the unique thing in our Indian society is that the woman puts herself behind the rest of the family. So I think that is not the thing that they should do, because they believe that if they say that they have this problem, the rest of the family will get destroyed. So I tell them it's important that you take care of yourself, because if you are not all right, you are the pillar for the family. And if you don't take care of yourself, then and neglect yourself, then your whole family is destroyed. So I think this is very, very important for us
It's
to
a
say.
catch-22 situation,
Exactly.
almost, doctor, where they're like, we're the pillars of the family. Something
Yes.
happens to us, and what
Exactly.
will everybody do? But then at the same time, if they don't
Exactly.
take care of themselves.
Exactly. So this
how
is
are
a
they?
sort of
Yeah.
a thing that we need to drive into the brains of all our Indian women.
I
And
think society and men, I think it's
of
society
course,
as a whole, right?
we are always for women. Don't worry. Always.
Absolutely. And I want to bring in Roshni here on this point, because Roshni, the messaging that's attached to breast cancer as well. And I think like this is one aspect that I want to cover in the first phase before I move on to really like technical aspects in terms of clinical protocols, etc. Is that the messaging attached to breast cancer is such, that leads to this societal understanding of it, and that leads to the stigma kind of being enhanced. How do we really change that messaging? What do we do? And I remember, and I mean, there have been these other diseases that have had that kind of stigma earlier as well, right? I mean, we've seen how messaging around AIDS, for instance, changed dramatically over the years, just through communication campaigns that were done to do so. Why is that not happening with breast cancer? It's been years now.
Thanks, Ignor, for the question. It's actually quite an extensive question. And I think, parts of the answer Dr. Minu and Dr. Govind, somehow touched upon. But I think the one thing that comes to mind with regards to messaging is, I want to continue from Dr. Babu's points, is that the fear around the prognosis. So you have symptoms, you get detected and you get diagnosed. But then the whole fear that comes with it, that what after, what happens after this? I think once we remove the fear and the messaging around the fear, it kind of probably takes care to a great extent the stigma associated with this. And where I'm coming from is, if you see data from Western countries, like if you take, say, US, for example, 60 to 70% of the breast cancer patients are detected at stage 1. Whereas if you take the case of India, for example, approximately more than 50% are at stage 3 already. And with every stage, progression, of course, the prognosis becomes worse and worse and worse. So it's completely linked in chain. So if you see majority of women getting diagnosed and then the prognosis being negatively tainted, then of course it kind of gives a self-fulfilling prophecy towards this fear. And the fear keeps continuing again and again. So I think the first message that probably needs to go out with regards to breast cancer is that breast cancer can be completely cured and treated 100% if diagnosed early. And then also bringing home the fact that the treatment methods available today are far more advanced than they were probably even 10 years back, with regards to radiation therapy, immunotherapy, and whatnot, that patients need not really fear how bad the whole treatment procedure is going to be like. Now, sometimes it's not the fear of the diagnosis or the fear of the disease itself, but the fear of the treatment, because patients are afraid about a painful treatment and a lengthy treatment, which keeps them off work or off household activities and so on.
The scary C, as Dr. Babu mentioned, is not just cancer, it's chemotherapy. I know for a fact, and we've spoken to so many people through the last couple of weeks, people are scared of the treatment. And Dr. Walia, I just want to understand, how do the clinical protocols really work, and are we following them today in India? I think that is really important to know. Are we really going step by step? Of course, मंजू जी ने बताया कि उनकी जर्नी कैसे रही, उनको बुखार हुआ, उनको पता चला कि लंप है, वो डॉक्टर के पास गए, there were tests, and then they found out that she has cancer, and of course then the treatment was decided. But protocol सही तरीके से follow हो रहा है इंडिया में, या there is some gap?
So, Ignor, the answer to your question is both yes and no. And why yes? I will rather say we are very fortunate in our country to have best of the international standardized protocols being followed at all the major institutions. So all over a country, whether it is north, south, any part of the country, wherever you have those major institutions, you have best of the protocols that are being followed. And rather, so many times we get complimented. Dr. Govind Babu will also be a witness to that. We get complimented by our peers outside who are in US and who are in UK. Recently only I was doing treatment of my patients, and her niece happened to be an oncologist in US, and she actually complimented and sent us a huge letter saying that what you guys are doing in India, even in US, I mean, not everybody, not every center can give this kind of this world class, the standard of treatment to our patients. So that answers the first part of your question where I said yes. But then there a part comes is when I said no also. No also is protocols are being followed in the institutions, in the big hospitals where there are teams which are doing that. But there will be, in our country, we understand there is a huge lot of our population which stays in the villages and which do not have access to these best of these hospitals and oncologists and standard places. So in our country, I will rather say there is a huge gap in something like, for example, for many patients also, we sometimes see, even if they are educated, even if they have access to the best of the hospitals, for a very, very long time, it will be for fever, for example, something like fever for very, very long time, your chemist is your first treating physician. So they will try to take treatment from their chemist, because it's not like US that you get medicines without prescription. So the first point is always your chemist, and you go and ask, Bukhar ho raha hai, this is happening, what is happening, and he will be the first doctor who will tell you the expert treatment, and the patient will keep on taking treatment for, I mean, not invariably you see there for 15 days or a month, and it depends on how severe the problem is. And then when they don't get relief, they will then change the chemist, probably still not go to a hospital or a doctor, then go to, if not relief, then probably they go to some physician, some local physician, who may be any physician. So if they have a problem regarding heart also, but they will go to a gastroenterologist simply because they will get a free advice, and maybe that happens to be the man staying next to his house. And it is by the time he ultimately really lands up with the real problem and the real doctor, there is a lot of lacuna there. This is actually a very sad state of affairs. People who can afford the world, and fortunately in our country, it is not like that everything is rooted through a physician and then there are long queues of appointments and like that. It is not that. Medical advances in our country, it is a way beyond than we ever imagined. But we are capable, and we are actually giving the best of the treatment which is available for the patient. But then the gap lies in, sometimes it is the real ignorance, sometimes it is the real logistic problems, but sometimes it is
accessibility,
yeah,
right?
accessibility.
Yeah.
But sometimes it is none of them. It is just the attitude. It is just the attitude, because we Indians sometimes tend to feel is that health is something we never plan for our health. Never think that health is important. We plan for a house, we plan for a child's marriage, we plan for a daughter's marriage. We'll plan for everything else, but we never plan that with age, the health problems may arise. And preventive health is an important aspect of our life. And another thing before I end, I must compliment Roshni pointed out a very, very important thing. Why people don't go land up with the oncologist is it is not so much of the fear about the disease per se, it is also the fear about the treatment. Because somehow that kind of a I'll say, is being created, like chemos will be given and they are very painful treatment. People don't know about what are the latest. For example, immunotherapy, we are doing immuno-oncology and so many things. But on the name of immunotherapy, every Tom, Dick, and Harry gives some concoction of herbs and says this versus immunotherapy, which is much more cheaper than the immunotherapy, not the real evidence-based immunotherapy. So I rather in that, I really appreciate Mrs. Manju Katyal, because when she went through chemotherapy and how boldly she had gone through that journey, and today, I mean, these are the faces which should come to the forefront. People feel somebody who would have gone through chemotherapy, a bald face, a dark face, and I mean, your looks become, you look like a demon. But here we have her who have gone through all this, and she's more beautiful. I will rather say, I always felt that she's more beautiful than any other person around me.
Absolutely, she's radiating, and we are so proud of the journey that Manju Katyal has taken. Ma'am, in fact, the next question was directed to her. Accessibility is something you spoke about, Dr. Walia, and I want to talk to Manju ji about that. जब टेस्ट के बारे में बात आती है, things like PET scan, इतना हम जानते हैं कि ये बहुत कम इंस्टीट्यूशंस में अवेलेबल है. Waiting can go up to 2-3 months sometimes. And I mean, a lot of us have had personal experiences जहाँ पे हम किसी को जानते हैं और उनको टेस्ट बुक नहीं हो रहा है उनका, या कोई कनेक्शन लगा के टेस्ट बुक हो रहा है. ये एक्सेसिबिलिटी प्रॉब्लम्स हैं, राइट? मंजू जी, क्या आपको कभी ये प्रॉब्लम्स फेस करनी पड़ी इन टर्म्स ऑफ कि टेस्ट करने के लिए वेटिंग थी, या कोई ड्रग नहीं मिल रहा हो, या क्या आपकी जर्नी काफी स्मूथ रही? ऑल्सो उसी में अगर आप हमें बता सके कि आपकी जर्नी थ्रू द ट्रीटमेंट, जिससे लोग डरते हैं, कीमोथेरेपी, रेडिएशन, ब्लैक मार्क्स पड़ जाएंगे, बाल गिर जाएंगे, ये चीजों से ये लोग बहुत डरते हैं इन चीजों से. आपकी जर्नी कैसी रही इसकी?
मेरी जर्नी बहुत इजी रही. डॉक्टर मीनू ने, मैं कहती हूँ, बहुत अच्छी है ये. और इन्होंने, जब मैं इनके पास गई कीमोथेरेपी के लिए, तो इन्होंने बोला कि आपने क्या सुना कीमोथेरेपी के लिए? तो मैंने कहा, कहते गूगल वगैरह पे कुछ, तो इन्होंने स्माइल दे के कहा कुछ तो आपने सुना होगा. मैंने कहा नहीं, मैंने कुछ नहीं सुना, क्योंकि हर आदमी की बॉडी जो है वो कैसे रिएक्ट करती है ये हम लोगों को नहीं मालूम है. मैंने कहा मैं तो एक प्लेन पेपर हूँ और मैं ये देखूंगी कि मेरी इसमें मेरी जर्नी में क्या होता है क्या नहीं होता. तो उसके बाद इन्होंने, डॉक्टर मीनू वालिया ने मेरे को बोला कि ठीक है, आप सरवाइव कर जाओगे उस हिसाब से, जिस हिसाब से आपकी सोच है. जैसे जैसे ये होता था, ये मेरा, हेलो हेलो,
हाँ जी, आपकी आवाज आ रही है मंजू जी. आपका वीडियो बंद हो गया है पर आपकी आवाज आ रही है.
हाँ, तो इन्होंने मेरे को बोला कि आप, ठीक है. इन्होंने मेरी इसमें बड़ी, मैं जब कीमो करवा भी रही थी तो तब उस टाइम में इन्होंने मेरे को इतना पुश किया, मेरे को रैंप वॉक के लिए भेजा. मैं तो इनकी दे नहीं सकती हूँ, क्योंकि मैं इतनी शाई और इतनी मैं थी. इन्होंने इतना पुश किया मेरे को, इतना पुश किया. और जब मैं रैंप वॉक के लिए स्टेज पर गई तो मैंने अपने आप को ये समझा कि मैं तो बड़े इम्पोर्टेंट हूँ इसमें. और थ्रू आउट इन्होंने हर बात में समझाते थे. हालांकि मेरी अपनी बेवकूफियों से कई बार मेरे को 1-2 बार प्रॉब्लम हुई है, पर वो जब हम डॉक्टर की बात नहीं मानते हैं तब मैंने देखा उस बात में होता है. इसलिए मैं हर एक को ये बोलूंगी कि जैसे डॉक्टर आपको करें उसी हिसाब से आप लोगों को चलना चाहिए, पूरी प्रिकॉशंस लेनी चाहिए, उनके अकॉर्डिंगली चलना चाहिए, क्योंकि डॉक्टर्स को ज्यादा मालूम होता है कि आपके लिए ठीक क्या है, आपके लिए गलत क्या है. मैं तो ये कहूंगी. और मेरा 1.25 साल के करीब ट्रीटमेंट चला है, क्योंकि मेरे को हरसेप्टिन के इंजेक्शंस भी लगे हैं. तो पर उसमें इन्होंने मेरे को कोई लंबी चौड़ी कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं हुई, कुछ नहीं हुआ मेरे को, कोई ऐसी प्रॉब्लम मेरे को आई नहीं है. थोड़ी बहुत जो होती है, थोड़े साइड इफेक्ट जो होते हैं वो तो हुए थे उसमें, पर ऐसी नहीं. पर मैं समझती हूँ कि डॉक्टर्स जो है वो जितने पॉजिटिव अगर आप हो, उतने ही अगर पॉजिटिव डॉक्टर भी होते हैं तो आपकी जर्नी ज्यादा अच्छी रहती है. बाल चले गए तो उसमें क्या हो गया, लोग कहते हैं हाय बाल चले जाते हैं, बाल चले गए तो.
एब्सोल्युटली. आई थिंक मंजू जी आपने अपने आपको म्यूट कर लिया गलती से, बट दैट.
हेलो,
हाँ जी, अब आपकी आवाज आ रही है.
तो बाल चले गए तो डॉक्टर साहब मेरे को कहते हैं कि आप कोई बात नहीं, आप उसमें जहाँ पर भीड़ नहीं है आप उसमें जा सकते हैं। तो मैं बिना भीड़ वाले उसमें मॉल में चली गई। मेरे में इतना कॉन्फिडेंस उसमें बूस्ट किया उसमें कि मेरे बाल नहीं है तो क्या हुआ। मैं तो अपने आप को वो समझती थी कि मैं बड़ी सेलिब्रिटी हूँ कि मैंने बाल नहीं है। तो क्योंकि उन दिनों में शबाना आज़मी खुद वो बाल ऐसे उसने हेयर अपने रिमूव करवा के वो जाती थी। तो ये छोटी छोटी चीजें अगर हम इनको करें तो उसमें कोई नहीं है, बाल तो फिर आ जाएंगे।
Of
बॉडी
course.
जो है वो नीली हो रही है, पीली हो रही है, वो ठीक
नहीं,
हो जाती
आज
है।
आपको देखकर मंजू जी कोई बोल ही नहीं सकता कि आप इस ये सफर आपने लिया है, ये कोई बोल ही नहीं सकता आज आपको देख के। आई मीन यू आर as radiant as ever. And Dr. Babu, I want to come to you. I mean, of course, it's been a great journey for Manju ji, and I think that's also something that a lot of patients need to hear, right? That it's not as rough as people make it sound. And of course, it comes with its challenges, but it's really a means to an end. You know, you need to go through that treatment in order to live a healthy life. But a question that I did ask Manjuji also, and I want to bring that to you from a very from a medical infrastructure perspective, is that there are tests that do have waitings for months sometimes, and in India, accessibility does continue to be a big problem when it comes to breast cancer and other types of cancer as well. How does one really fight that challenge? You know, where's that missing link? How do we bridge that gap?
So I think, Ignore, you mentioned about PET scan waiting period is 3 months. That is in the US, not in India. In India,
a couple of years ago in India as well.
No. I think you went to the wrong place. In fact, there is hardly any waiting. In fact, patients should feel happy that there is no waiting list here. In India, they can just walk into any doctor's chamber and they will be seen. Unlike in the US, where they have to wait for 6 months to get an appointment. So
I think that's a myth. I think that's a myth. I'm glad that you've busted here as well, because definitely. I mean, these are myths that exist, right? Outside, when people talk about it, that, oh my God, we'll not be able to get tested. Absolutely. There is a waiting. So I'm really glad that you did that.
And as Dr. Meenu said, the first person a patient will go to is a pharmacist. And, you know, many times that pharmacy is not manned by a qualified pharmacist also. He would have left a person who is, you know, who knows nothing. And he will send that patient, he will give whatever medicine he has. And if he doesn't get better, he will send him to a sort of a non-qualified quack, because that is what that guy knows. So unfortunately, patients waste time in going from pillar to post and not going to the right place. But I think programs like this are slowly picking up. People are getting aware. I think today, everybody in India have access to social media, TV. So I think the awareness is definitely there. And facilities not being available is not true. Even in most government hospitals in India today, the basic treatment for breast cancer is available free of cost. People have to go there. That is the main thing. And one thing you talked about, protocols being followed. By and large, protocols are followed everywhere. In fact, the Indian Council of Medical Research, along with many other societies, have put in protocols talking about what is the best and tailored it to our Indian society as to what is the basic minimum that should be done. So that basic minimum is affordable everywhere across India. And in fact, there is a proposal that at every medical college, they need to open an oncology wing so that patients don't have to travel long distances to get treatment. So that is the another thing that is happening. And of course, everybody talks about the cost being very high in India. In fact, compared to rest of the world, we are the most affordable and we have the best treatment. In fact, the therapies that we give in India has been a study for the Harvard Business School. And they've actually shown that for the investment that is there, our outcomes are much, much better than what happens in the West. You know, the term called ROI, return on your investment, is much, much better in India. So we have a lot of medical tourism happening in India, if you must know. A lot of people from UK, US, and a lot of Gulf countries are coming to India, because in US and UK, they have to go through the system where it's a long waiting period. And we have had patients who come here and take treatment. So that is very, very important for us to remember. So those are issues that are myths. And as
And I'm so glad that you've set the record straight. I think it's really important also. I think these are things that are just there. They're out there in society. These are things
yes,
that people genuinely,
correct.
they discuss in drawing rooms, right? People
Correct.
believe that this
And I
exists
always
and-
tell my patients, before they come, they are brainwashed by a lot of people. So I tell them you have 1.3 billion people in India, and you will get 2.6 billion advices for free, which have no basis for anything. And as Mrs. Manju said, I always, whatever I tell my patients, they're not convinced. So I have a lot of patients who are willing to talk to the new patient. So I use the old patients who have finished their treatment, who are doing well. So I think whatever we say, people who have undergone this treatment, they are the best people to support the new patient. So I have a group of patients who are willing to do it, and that really helps.
That's really so important as well, right?
Yeah.
In fact, we have a lot of questions that our attendees and a lot of people who registered and who probably are watching live on Facebook or will watch the event later as well have sent in when they registered for this event, which I'll like to take up. But before we jump into the Q&A session, I'd like to tell our attendees that if they have any questions at this point of time, you can either comment on the live link on Facebook with your question, or you can just put it in the Q&A box over here on Zoom if you've joined here. But we'll be taking both sets of questions. So don't worry, nobody's question is going to get missed. A lot of them are very, very basic questions though. So we kind of categorize them and we will be taking them up. But before I move into those, I just want to get a quick overview from you, Roshni, in terms of the stigma that exists. And of course, we had Reema, who kind of set the tone in the beginning, talking about that stigma and the fact that, Pinkathon as a community came together to beat that stigma as well. And today we are looking at creating an informed world so that we break that stigma. Because at the end of the day, I think the crux of everything that we've spoken about over here, preconceived notions, etc., comes from that stigma, right? What is the way forward, and how do we really ensure that that stigma doesn't exist in society again?
Thanks, Ignor. Yes, I think I touched upon this point slightly. So let me, earlier, let me expand on this. So definitely there's like a whole lot of, like from the whole patient's journey from early symptoms to diagnosis and then treatment, there are several challenges that present themselves. And, like the way I like to think about it, these challenges are not just socio-cultural and economic, but also some systemic challenges. And the stigma rises, of course, out of the socio-cultural and economic, challenges. And definitely Dr. Babu, Dr. Walia, Manju, and they've covered this in extensive detail. But I want to come back to that same point again. I think the point being, we have to understand whether the stigma is arising out of lack of awareness of the disease itself, the fear around the disease. And I would say, by and large, the stigma around disease occurs across every disease. And there was a point when there was stigma around diabetes. There was a point when there's still stigma around mental health, for example, right? So this is probably one of that, similar situation, but it becomes more complex because it's related to women's health. And by and large, and as was covered before, women's health often take a low priority in the social construct of things in general in India probably, and in many other places in the world as well. So as long as we can elevate women's health to being socially and economically important, not just at home, but also at the workplace, I think we have a chance of battling that stigma. Then the next question is, the stigma is probably this whole thing around survival, that, okay, I've got diagnosed, let me hide it because, I might not even survive. Well, that is a myth I think we need to break. While that might be true for a very minor percentage of cases, but that's not true today for sure. And like Dr. Walia and Dr. Babu mentions, I think in India, we practice some of the best care facilities. We have the best care across, as what you would find in any developed country and market. So that fear, I think, needs to be tackled. And I would say that's where we need to focus a lot of our energies and efforts on, in building the right awareness on what are the possible treatment methodologies, what are the options available. And that's where I would say the systemic challenge comes to my mind, because we must first all understand that early detection is only valuable if it leads to timely and correct diagnostic follow-up and effective treatment. So even if there's early diagnosis and not any of the others, it's a worse, and that lends to the fear, and that lends to the stigma and negative results and prognosis. So I think at the time of diagnosis as a system, we also need to understand and evaluate the healthcare system and understand, are the patients diagnosed and staged correctly? Are the patients then referred to the right physicians for follow-up and treatment? To Dr. Minu's point earlier, are the patients also being made aware of all the treatment options available to them that are safe and effective? Or is it just, they're told, okay, you have to remove your breasts after, as a treatment option, as the only treatment option, and probably that's lending into the fear and stigma. So there could be several of these analytics that needs to be done and effort put behind all of these.
Absolutely. I want to also actually, since you mentioned that, highlight the fact that while one point that I feel like we have not addressed is that do we also look at the fact that the stigma not only arises from the fear of the disease, but also the impact of it in terms of how, a woman's body, the way she looks. And I think Dr. Walia mentioned that briefly, but I think that is the real stigma that that we really need to beat, right? I think because in most cases of breast cancer, it leads to breast surgery. And I think that is where a lot of people get scared. When I mentioned clinical protocols, I think one of my key questions was really embedded in the fact that, are there protocols that do actually look at avoiding surgery and treating cancer as well? And are people aware of those options? Dr. Walia, if you'd like to answer that.
So again, I will say, ignore a very relevant question for all the ladies around, because the message that should go home to each and everybody is breast cancer surgery is also not about losing your breasts. So even if surgery is being done, it does not always mean that you lose your breasts. So it is all the more reason that you come earlier to the doctor. The earlier you come to the right specialist, when the size of the tumor is less, when the tumor has not spread anywhere else, where a lot of breast conservation surgeries can be done. What about breast conservation? When we talk about, we are talking about just removing a part of the breast tissue only, and retaining the rest of the breast tissue. And then definitely many things, reconstruction can be done, if many things can happen, and the cosmesis can be maintained. So it is not, breast cancer surgery does not in today's date means losing your femininity. We have n number of patients, we have n number of people who were fortunate enough to come at the right time, where the breast can be saved and the cosmesis can give almost near normal results. So that is the reason that one needs to be more aware, because earlier in the disease course, you come to know about the disease when the disease is still smaller, the more are the chances that your breast will be saved.
So it's about people knowing that these are the options that exist, right? It's also about them kind of being aware that these are the options. And of course, at the end of the day, everybody trusts the doctor that they're going to. And I'm going to jump straight into our questions, because I'm also very conscious of the time, and we have a lot of questions that people have asked today. So just getting straight into symptoms and diagnosis. There are a lot of people that have like basic questions with regards to that. The first one is that what are the symptoms and things to observe on your body in case you have those genes? Now, this is something that a lot of other people have also asked is it genetic? Will I get it if my mother had it? How do I come to know whether I have it or not if my mother already had it? These are a few questions that we got. So Dr. Govind Babu, would you like to take that first?
Yeah, sure. So, this genetic disorder being breast cancer associated came into big limelight because of Angelina Jolie. I think she brought about a lot of awareness for that. And we know that some breast cancers are genetically linked, but it is only a small percentage. So what happens is today, if we can detect whether this BRCA1 or 2 gene is positive in the patient, then we have some treatment options that are very specific for this type of genetic cancers. More important, it is used to screen the rest of the family, because it can be a tool to prevent breast cancers, do a lot of other counseling therapies for all of them. So I think there are two aspects to this BRCA1 and 2 gene. So it's important that we look at this aspect. And like I said, it is the celebrity who's brought it up to the forefront, and more people are aware of it. So I think these are things that are very, very important.
Another question that's come in is that apart from early diagnosis, is there prevention, or is there like a way that you can navigate breast cancer more easily? Dr. Walia, would you like to take that?
Ignore, can you please repeat the question?
Yeah, apart from early diagnosis, is there any other way to not prevent breast cancer, but navigate that journey better?
So, yeah, lot many things. For example, we need to be aware about the risk factors for breast cancer. So when we say there is a risk factor for breast cancer, what we mean is if these kind of risk factors are there, the chances of developing breast cancer are more. So risk factors, we further subdivide into, there are certain risk factors which we say are non-modifiable risk factors. For example, if you are a woman, yes, definitely your chance of developing a breast cancer is higher compared to your male counterpart. If your age increases, even when you are a woman, if your age increases, your chances of breast cancer becomes higher. If you have a longer hormonal exposure of your body, something like you have your period starting early, that is an early menarche, or you have a late menopause, then your chances of breast cancer is slightly higher. If your mother, your nanny, or somebody in your family had breast or ovarian cancer, or you have this BRCA mutation, your chances of having breast cancer is higher compared to a normal female. But these are something where you cannot do anything about it. So if my mother had, or if these things happen, then you cannot do anything about it. But then there is a whole list of risk factors which we say are modifiable risk factors, which are known to increase your risk of developing breast cancer. And one can really, if one is aware, one can really do a lot many things to decrease your chances of breast cancer. And what are these modifiable risk factors? These modifiable risk factors is something like, data do say that if you get married later, you have your first child later in your age, and you do not breastfeed your child, the chances of breast cancer are higher. So if your first child happens after the age of 35 and you have not breastfed your child, the chances of breast cancer are higher. If you're obese, your chances of breast cancer are higher. If you follow a sedentary lifestyle, your chances of breast cancer are higher. So these are all the things where a lot can be done. You can try to keep your weight in check. You can try to be physically active. It is proven beyond doubt that physical activity combats cancers and breast cancer also. So if somebody is physically active, as little as just 30 minutes of walk every day will decrease your chances of cancer to a great extent. Then eating a lot of fresh fruits and salads. These are all known as cancer-fighting foods. They decrease your chances of cancer compared to eating. I mean, people who take a lot of processed meats, red meat, and all these kind of things, your chances of cancer increases. So these are simple lifestyle changes that needs to be done. We should be aware of what to eat, and in our medical language, we nowadays say sitting is the new smoking. So what is happening with the girls becoming more educated? We are all becoming more professional. We either delay marriages, or we take the decisions of not getting married, or even when we get married, we take the decisions of not having a child, or even when we have a child, we take the decision of not breastfeeding, and then everything is like sitting in front of the computer. We have maids at home. So physical activity somehow seems to be going down the drain. And obesity as such, even in our children, is increasing. Our lifestyle is changing. Our eating patterns are changing. We want to go for packed foods, processed meats, all red, and less of fruits and salads in our diet. So all these things.
One needs to be more mindful about what they're eating, they're moving, they're keeping their body in check, right? Basically, I think one just needs to be really kind to their bodies. And I think that kind of answers this one question that came in from one of our attendees, which is that what role does nutrition and exercise play in the recovery process? So you mentioned about prevention, but when somebody's recovering from breast cancer, how much of a role does nutrition and exercise play in that?
So it definitely plays a very, very important role, not only in prevention of breast cancer, but also in the recovery process. So you need to talk to your oncologist, what diets to be taken, what diets should be taken. You should have a dietitian, which should be a part of your this journey, and even exercises. We do not encourage our patients to sit at home or to be bedridden during the course of the treatment. The more they remain physically active, the more they, but exercises again after consultation for your doctor, because every cancer is different. Every cancer in every patient is different, whether your bones are affected or not, what kind of exercises can be done. You should have
and you don't want to be exerting, and you don't
Yeah.
want to be physically exerting the patient.
Yeah.
In fact, Manju ji को लाना चाहूंगी इस point पे. Manju ji, आपने क्या exercise और nutrition लिया जब आप recovery process में थी?
डॉक्टर साहब ने मेरे को जैसे बोला था तो वो वैसे मैं वेजिटेरियन हूँ, तो जिस हिसाब से उन्होंने बोला तो न्यूट्रिशन ने उसी हिसाब से वो डाइट ली, चिड़वा, पनीर और ये सब कुछ, और फ्रूट्स।
लोग कहते हैं ना कि ऐसे कैंसर से ट्रीटमेंट चल रहा है तो खाना बिल्कुल अच्छा खाने को नहीं मिलता है, सब कुछ उबला उबला खाना पड़ता है. ये सही है, ये सच है? आप लोगों को बताना चाहेंगे कि ऐसा बिल्कुल नहीं है?
नहीं, ऐसा बिल्कुल नहीं है. और डॉक्टर साहब ने बोला था कि जो चीज खाओ फ्रेश खाओ और होममेड खाओ, और ऐसे करते थे कि घर में बनाते थे और उसी वक्त बनाना है उन्होंने बोला था, और आधे घंटे के बीच बीच में खा लेना उसको. तो उनकी ये बात को फॉलो किया. उन्होंने बोला सब चीजें खाओ पर घर की बनी हुई खानी है, ऐसा कुछ नहीं कि वो ये नहीं खाना वो नहीं खाना. हाँ, उन्होंने बोला था कि फ्रूट्स में वो थोड़ी लिमिटेड थी. फ्रूट जो है वो अगर आपने खाना है, जैसे एप्पल खाना है तो उसको थोड़ा सा वो माइक्रोवेव में चला के खाओ उसको, ताकि उसके जो आपको इन्फेक्शन ना हो जाए उससे, उसको मतलब. तो जैसे उन्होंने
कच्चा खाना नहीं खाना बिल्कुल भी,
कच्चा खाना बिल्कुल नहीं खाना है, जैसे कच्चा सैलड नहीं खाना, उसमें पका हुआ खाना खाना है जो, और खाना भी आधे घंटे के बीच बीच में है. जो फूड बनाओ उसको आधे घंटे के बीच में खाना है, और सब कुछ खाओ. जैसे वो एक दिन मैंने उनको बोला कि मेरा चाट खाने को दिल करे, मतलब कुछ मुंह का स्वाद ऐसे खराब है, तो उन्होंने बोला घर में बना के उसको खा लो और उसको उसी वक्त बनाओ उसी वक्त खा लो, मतलब आधे घंटे के बीच.
No, for the benefit of our English listeners as well, what Manju Katyal has just told us is that one of the best advice that she got from her doctor was that whenever you want to eat something, make sure that it's not raw, and make sure that you cook it at home and eat it within the first 30 minutes of it being cooked. So मैं बस लोगों को आपकी एडवाइस दे रही हूँ ताकि जितने लोग ये अटेंड कर रहे हैं सेशन सबको बेनिफिट मिले इससे. और हमारे पास क्वेश्चंस बहुत ज्यादा हैं, so I'd like to move on, and I want to come to Roshni for this because there are a lot of questions in terms of stigma and what the reality of battling breast cancer is, which is somebody's spoken about survivor issues, and this is, I think, there are multiple questions with regards to this, management of long time side effects, because you are going to be on medication for a long time, and that is something that a lot of people have asked, in terms of how does one deal with that, because people tend to feel like they are always going to be a patient.
So maybe I'm not 100% qualified to answer the question. We have esteemed, doctors in this panel, but I can say something in, my experience earlier dealing with this. Let's take the example of diabetes, for example. We have to live with that disease for the rest of our lives, right? Especially type 1, type 2, anyone. And we accept it as part of life. We make certain adjustments. With regards to cancer care, it's actually not as bad. Even in fact, with respect to breast cancer, if it's diagnosed very early, treated, one can be completely cured and completely lead a completely normal life. And when we talk about taking care of our health, I think that's irrespective of whether we are a cancer survivor or not. That part of it remains. I think that has to remain. So if we think that taking care of our health is making us feel like we are sick, That's why we have to take care of our health. I think that's a wrong attitude to have right at the beginning. Some of the tips that Dr. Minu mentioned, I think those are to be followed by anyone and everyone. So that's the other thing. The second question, part of your question was around pain and around, like all of this concerns around that. I think the treatment itself, whether you talk about radiation therapy or with immunotherapy, chemotherapy, it's all for a very limited time. Radiation therapy, the whole treatment can get finished within a month. Sometimes it can get finished within a week with the latest newer protocols. With chemotherapy, immunotherapy, it can last a bit longer, but then again, very, very limited. So it's not like for the rest of the patient's life, they have to keep undergoing treatment unless, of course, there's a recurrence. And if there's a recurrence, then of course, it means that the patient is not 100% cancer free and it's coming back for some reason or the other. So I think all of this play a role in survivorship and managing survivorship. And there are, with increasing women in India getting diagnosed in the age groups of 30s and 40s and so on. And fortunately, at least in the metro cities, with awareness coming up, many of them are getting diagnosed early and thus getting treated very well, and they're leading completely normal lives. So I think we have to take away all of this fear. If you look at the Western world, they celebrate when they come out of breast cancer. It's a celebration. It's not about, because it does take a toll mentally, emotionally, financially, economically, and so on and so forth. So once you're coming out of that, you should be considered a champion, like some.
Of course, and we have a champion with us on the panel today. That's Manju Katyal ji, हमारी champion आज हैं हमारे साथ. And I think for everybody who has joined this panel today and is watching this discussion, they can see it with their own eyes, right? This is not something that you can't beat. It is something you can beat. And on that note, I have this one very interesting question from a cancer survivor. She says, I am a cancer survivor. I want to learn what more can I do to stay healthy. So Dr. Walia, if you could answer that. I also just want to let everybody know Dr. Govind had to unfortunately just leave us right now because he had to jump into an emergency. But we have Dr. Walia here who's going to be answering all our technical medical questions.
So I think it's again a very relevant point which has been asked for by the survivor. What happens is, like we see in many of our cancer patients also, once the treatment is completed, they go back to what it was earlier, go back to their old routine. So, I mean, it's like, for example, there are certain breast cancer cases which are hormone receptor positive, and you need to give them certain tablets which have to be taken for a minimum of 5 years. In some cases, 10 years also. So it is a long period, but it is a simple tablet that needs to be taken, and one needs to adhere to that. And in many cases, we see that after they will take it very religiously for 1 year, for 2 years, and after 2 years, they feel they're perfectly fine, nothing, okay, they're absolutely fine. And then the patient suddenly lands up with you after 7 years. He has forgotten you and he has forgotten all the routine tests, and then comes, and then why the tablet was stopped? Because I was perfectly fine. So that mindset is also there. So adherence to the treatment protocol is something which is very important. And we very commonly we see patients that they will, especially whenever when they feel they're absolutely all right, they will midway stop the journey, stop the treatment, and then just simply disappear. And then this is something which I always want to reiterate. Then something like I always keep on telling my patients, if you have had breast cancer in one breast, there are always chances of having cancer in the other breast too. So what in the West we do, we recommend any lady who is more than 40 years of age to have an annual mammography. So even if in those cases where one breast has been removed, your second breast is there, you should still go for an annual mammography. I mean, not everybody will go for an annual mammography. They are healthy and then they forget. Just what I feel is a very common concept that once the treatment is over, they feel the treatment is, I mean, it's just over. And because I'm feeling all right, the treatment is over. So adhering to the treatment protocol, especially hormonal tablets, if something has been given, the whole treatment protocol should be adhered. And then the screening The screening still has to continue for the other breast. The screening should continue for the other cancers too. So being a breast cancer survivor does not make you immune to any other cancer, does not make you immune to ovarian cancer or cervical cancer,
Yeah.
something else. And
Yeah.
plus, then whatever we say as a normal healthy lifestyle, physical activity, a lot of fresh fruits and salads, being avoiding the high risk behavior. So all this will continue later on also. So even, I mean, that there is no compromise for a healthy lifestyle, balanced diet, being physically active, having a lot of nutritious food, and being very, very vigilant on your be body aware and on your screenings.
I think that also answers this question, which is about what tests should we regularly do post 40, which is, like you said, an annual test is something that they definitely need to get. Is there anything else that you think they need to get done other than a mammogram?
So unfortunately, there is no single test which we will say that it will be a screening test for all the cancers. So every
Okay.
cancer is different. For example, for breast, we say a mammography after the age of 40. But then for cervical cancer, we normally ask a pap smear to be done. So pap
Yeah.
smear to be started as early as 21 years of age.
I think that is another discussion altogether in terms of
Yeah.
the stigma that is associated with the pap smear in itself, because we know a lot of people who do not even want to go and get a pap smear done. But I think we need another 1 hour just to discuss that.
Yes. So for breast, I will definitely say that a breast self-examination. There is no compromise on a breast self-examination. So even if you are healthy, you should know how to do a breast self-examination of the remaining breast, of the other breast, at what time of what phase of the menstrual cycle it needs to be done, how it needs to be done, how frequently it needs to be done. Then clinical breast examination that still needs to be done. Mammography, these are the basic simple things that needs to be done.
Absolutely. And I think just being mindful of that, I think, is so important, right? And I think largely a lot of questions that we've gotten today have been answered by you, Dr. Walia, because you so aptly put across details and very workable, practical ways in which people can ensure that they are safe and healthy and they look after themselves. And when it comes to breast cancer, we are here to tell you that there is no stigma. Break that stigma, move ahead without fear. There is enough treatment available today. And I mean, we can see Manju ji जो हमारे साथ बैठी हुई है यहाँ पर, she has fought breast cancer and she's here, and there are plenty of such breast cancer survivors that exist. There are communities all over social media. There are communities all over the internet and offline. There are support groups available today where you can meet other people who are going through a similar experience. So I just want to say a big thank you to Dr. Walia for giving us all of these valuable insights. Also, thank you to Dr. Govind Babu, who had to leave us early, but such important inputs from him as well. Roshni, thank you for your very insightful input in terms of how we need to change that messaging really when it comes to breast cancer. And there are so many small aspects to it which you highlighted through the discussion. And Manju ji, thank you. आपने आज हमारे साथ जो अपने बारे में शेयर किया, आई एम श्योर जो आज हमें ज्वाइन करे हैं ये इवेंट के लिए, उन्होंने वो सुनी है बात, and they are going home with a bucket full of knowledge and information, and I'm sure that's going to help them as they proceed in this journey to fighting breast cancer. Thank you so much, everybody. This is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and we at SPAG Dialogue have created a lot of conversations. In fact, just talking about self-checks and self-examinations, as Dr. Walia mentioned, we recently put out a video about how your hands are your best friends when it comes to breast cancer. So please go ahead, do your self-examinations, live a healthy life, eat well, go for regular screenings. This is not something you need to be scared of. Break that stigma, and we can fight this together. And thank you to our event partners, Roche, Pinkathon, Leap.club, and Varian for supporting us in this cause. SPAG Dialogue will continue to create these conversations and bring about a change. You can visit us on our website at spagdialogue.com. we keep doing these events regularly. Thank you so much to all our lovely panelists and to our attendees for joining us. We overshot the time a little bit, but thank you so much for staying with us.